There's already a problem nationwide going on, but in California, they won't be able to be pharmacists. Am I wrong?
Well, pharmacists don't have an exemption from AB5 in California. So I have pharmacists in my group that lost their livelihoods overnight and were blindsided by it. And these are people that have doctorate degrees, if, licensed professionals. So anybody who thinks that these anti-independent contracting laws only affect, quote unquote, exploited rideshare, quote unquote, drivers or janitorial workers or whatever are just wrong. I mean, it affects the whole vast swath of professions. As far as your first question about the PRO Act, I think it's just, pandering to the union base, the union benefactors. And so they always, bring up the PRO Act, but it is a threat if, the powers, the dynamics in Washington shifts after the election. I mean, like Kim said, all it would have taken was there were a couple of senators here and there, and we'd be dealing with the aftermath of the PRO Act right now. So they're always going to try to push it to, pander to their to big labor, who, that's where the golden ticket is for these politicians. But as far as AB5, my biggest challenge with it is that a lot of people don't understand what it is. They think it's been repealed. They get Prop 22 mixed up with AB5, and even people allies of ours in the media get their facts wrong about it. There was an assembly person a couple of days ago, and that was arguing against a certain regulation that was being considered in this legislation, and stated outright that AB5 had been repealed by the people, which is complete nonsense. So that's that is my biggest challenge, is that people are complacent and they don't think AB5 exists anymore.
So, okay, if all the other states were watching California to see how AB5 went, and now they're all wanting AB5, why? Because AB5 was supposed to create jobs, and it wasn't going to hurt everybody. All it did was kill careers, and it created no jobs.
If you paid attention to any of the Julie Sue hearings, she and even the people the Democrats that were, in her camp during the confirmation hearings, they were treated AB5 like a hot potato. They didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. She distanced herself completely from it and said, "Oh, you're not going to see the ABC test, in federal law. It's not going to happen." So they know they're not touting AB5, they're running from it. But in reality, they're mimicking it in other ways. And that's why that 6-factor test that we're talking about, that's going to probably be finalized in October, they can't outright implement the ABC test per statute. But if you examine the 184-page law, it mimics the ABC test nonetheless, and it would have the same effect. And the chilling effect is what we're really concerned about.
And Steve, you said it was a disaster in California, not to the AFL-CIO. They can't unionize independent contractors. It's illegal by law to unionize independent contractors. The fewer independent contractors that are in the workforce, and the more people who have to go seek out traditional employer-employee jobs, they see that as a win. So the notion that AB5 failed to them, that's crazy. They think less independent contractors is a good thing. We're not an unintended consequence. We're intentional collateral damage to these people.
Well, but I have to say to that, okay, but that would make sense if you killed off, and it's still wrong. It would, okay, let's say you killed off 5 million career people who have built businesses, and you created 5 million jobs, but there's no job. How can you go back and say, well, we can't unionize them unless they're employees, but yet none of them became employees? So like, you can't unionize them if they're unemployed either.
I agree with you 100%. And over the holiday weekend, they were sharing some data. Wasn't it Joe Biden came out and said that in his administration, he'd created 13 or 14 million jobs, something like that. That was the number, 13 or 14 million. There's 60 million Americans now earning some or all of their income as independent contractors, according to the latest research. The notion that overnight we're just going to turn all of them into traditional employee roles, I want some of whatever they're drinking. It's better than the NyQuil I took last night so that I could stop coughing, you know?
You also have to differentiate between public sector and private sector unions. Private sector unions comprise only 6% of the workforce. A lot of this push is from public sector unions, and you see that.
But again, no jobs were created though.
Well,
I mean,
some they can point to some as, you know.
Okay, but aren't they jobs that would have been created anyway? Like, I'm just saying. I mean, I don't think it was like AB5 created all these jobs.
No, you're correct to say that the overwhelming result of this policy in California was the destruction of legitimate independent contractor income and careers.
Yeah.
They're not going to let go of AB5 because they finally captured the trucking industry, and so they think, and they still are hot on the tail of Uber and Lyft. In fact, Proposition 22, the SEIU is SEIU. Yeah, SEIU is going after Proposition the constitutionality. They're appealing that ruling.
I don't think Prop 22 is ever going to be out of court. That thing's going to be in court forever.
I think one of the interesting things is that with the in the electric vehicle market, the steel industry, the automobile industry are both being hard hit by the offshoring of electric vehicle manufacturing, mostly to Asia. And basically, if you look carefully, what you see is the unions. The Democratic Party is abandoning manufacturing unions and supporting that with public sector unions. It's something really fierce to watch. I'm originally an Ohioan, and to watch an industry be just demolished in 50 years. From steel making and automobile and parts and everything, paint manufactured in the Midwest, that's all disappearing now as the car types change and as the union focus changes. So we have, as freelancers, self-employers, we have huge number of opportunities for people who are now working in automobile plants and supplier plants, who are going to be forced to find self-employment jobs because there isn't anything coming in their field, absolutely nothing. So they're talking 30% reductions, and that's hundreds of thousands of positions are going to just disappear from the country. Because, if you know how to assemble or design dies for stamping plants, I've seen these things. You're not going to go someplace else and do pharmaceutical stamping. That's crazy. So anyway, we have a big opportunity to pick apart and take more supporters for our point of view than the unions do for their point of view.